think we can, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to start with a blank patch. Today is tremolos. So I'm going to make a basic tremolo first. And if you are ready and haven't done this before, just grab your tremolo or grab your ZOIA and try to follow along. I do want to try to stay focused on tremolos for this bootcamp. So if we can keep, because the ZOIA can just go anywhere. Like we could go just crazy with where it goes. And I want it to be in the scope, at least of tremolo, as far as where we go and what we do today. And we'll have more meetings and more time to kind of expand and do different things. So I think we're going to cover a lot of ground during this course. And everyone's muted right now, but we'll unmute for questions and to talk after I go through the basics of the tremolo. And after I get the very basics, we'll take questions on like how to do that basic tremolo. And then after that, we can go into more advanced kind of options for the tremolo. So yeah, let's get into it. Is this okay? That's should be the spotlight. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to load up this blank patch here. And it's completely blank. I have no audio, no anything going in and out. And I'm going to first place and audio input. One thing, actually, I go to page 1. I like to leave page 0 blank to make a control page. So I'm going to go to page 1 and press wherever I want to put my first module. I like to keep my audio at the top. So I'm going to press the very top corner, interface modules, and audio input is the first option. So I'm going to click the encoder to place an audio input. There's a couple different options. I want it to be mono. I'm just going to go with through my left channel and hit done. And now that light there is my audio input. I'm going to put an audio output over here and just click interface modules, audio output. I want this one to be, I can change the color. There's a lot of different colors. I want it to be lime. And you can there's no set color or anything for audio. And I'll go up and click done. And now I have an audio input and audio output. A tremolo is basically just 2 modules, a VCA and an LFO. And then we'll customize it a little bit because we'll add a couple things besides the VCA and the LFO, but I'm going to place my VCA right here. The VCA is an audio module. So I'm going to select the second module, VCA, and I want it to be mono, 1 in, 1 out. So now I have that. I'm going to place, I like to place everything on the grid before I start connecting everything. So I'll add a control module LFO. And I want a square wave. You can change the waveform in this menu here. I'm going to do a square wave. You can change it by clicking any parameter on the module. If you're completely new to the ZOIA, each light represents a different parameter. So for example, the audio input on the VCA is the first parameter. On audio modules, the input's always going to be the first parameter. The output's always going to be the last parameter. The middle are usually options you can modulate. For example, this VCA, if I press this middle button, that's the level control. So that's how high, how much audio passes through. And it's at negative infinity right now. If I turn it up, I can pass, unity or -4 dBs. I can control it. here on the screen, you'll see the bias point. This is another important thing to consider, which is the little circle on there. You need to kind of be aware of where that's at for modulation purposes and control purposes. So that point on the screen is all the way, I want it at 0 right now. And what I'll do is take this LFO, it's moving at 1.1 hertz. I have no idea what that means. So if I click, that's 66 BPMs. If I click the encoder when I press the first button, the first light on the LFO, click this encoder, and I can see that it's 66 BPM. And then if I move the encoder, I can change it. I want kind of a faster tremolo. And now I'm going to connect everything up. So what I'll do is press the audio input, and then I'll connect that to the VCA by pressing them together. Like my fingers are the patch cables. And if you think of your fingers as like patch cables, you just kind of use them to connect everything. So I'm pressing the audio input and the audio or the VCA in at the same time. And as I press those, a screen comes up. This is the connection strength. You can boost it. You can boost here, you can cut. I just want to keep it at unity. So I'll leave it there. And then I'm going to connect this VCA out to the audio output right and left. If I strum a guitar, still no sound. So what I need is the LFO to move that to open that VCA. So the LFO, if I look here, I can see there's the pulse of the LFO. I can hit shift and the eyeball up here. This is the shift button, so shift and the eyeball. And I can see that, I can see the pulse. Or if I hit shift again, I can see that there are no connections. So if I connect those two, I should have a working tremolo now. And yeah, that's the very basics of a tremolo. I'm going to show you a couple more things and then we'll open for questions. So I want to add a depth control and I want to add, I want to switch between waveforms. And that's all, those are the first things I want to do. I want to break this connection between the LFO and the VCA. So what I'll do is I'll push both those buttons again. And that's at 100%. So I'll hit, I see they're connected, you know, it says LFO, VCA. So I hit shift and the trash can, and the VCA is not connected anymore. And what I want to do is add a multiplier. So I go into control modules. Control modules are anything that has to do with CV. So the ZOIA has, if you have a modular synth, you have CV and audio are not separate, but for the ZOIA, with since it's, you know, its own digital system, CV and audio are separate things. So control modules use CV, while effects modules and audio modules pass audio. And you can still modulate and change parameters on the audio modules with CV. But anyway, if you're looking to do something with CV, hit control modules. And if you're not familiar with CV, it's just control voltage. This would be digital control voltage. It's what moves. It's just voltage is the information that passes to communicate between things. So I'm going to add a control module, and I'm going to add a multiplier here. And multipliers on the ZOIA are really good at for being used as attenuators. Because if I connect, so I'm going to connect this LFO into the first input of the multiplier. I have 2 inputs on my multiplier. I can add more, but I only need 2 for this use case. And then the second input, I'm going to add a value module. That would also be a control module because it's sending CV. And up here is value. And then the first button on the value module just is the amount of CV you're sending you can control. And the second one is the output. So I'm going to connect that to my second input of my multiplier. And this will attenuate as I turn my value module up. I get more of the LFO to pass through. So if I have this at 5 or 0.5, I get my LFO to go, instead of from 0 to 1, it's going from 0 to 0.5. And that's going to affect how the depth of the tremolo. So I'm going to add one thing. If I just put this directly into the VCA, I can get, it works kind of, but the depth is backwards. See, it's going from silence to -6 dB, where what I want it to do is go from unity to -6 dB. So I need to invert that. So I'm going to break that connection by hitting Shift and trash can. I'm going to add an inverter module. So control modules. Inverter. CV invert. So I connect my multiplier output to the invert, and this just instead of going, now 0 to 1, it goes 0 to -1. And if you don't know what something does, you can always, there's a question mark, there's a help screen built into the ZOIA. And if you hit Shift plus this question on anything in the ZOIA, it will tell you about it, because it's easy to forget what things are, especially with as many modules as it has in it. So like if I'm like, I don't really know how to explain what an inverter is, so if I hit Shift plus question mark, it's it tells me all about it. It says CV invert. Well, it says what. So that's what the input. What does the input of the CV invert do? It CV input to get inverted. That's what. That's what it does. Inverts the incoming CV. For example, CV input of 1 will go to -1. So yeah, that's. I mean, the help's always really easy. I'll slow down a little bit. I was trying to go a little faster because I didn't want anybody to get, too bored, but I'll finish this and take questions because I've run through a lot of things really quickly. So I'm going to connect my CV input into the VCA, and now I'm getting no signal. But what I can do is I need to adjust the bias of this VCA level control up to 1. And now I'm getting, because this is sending 0 to -1, this needs to be at 1 so it can go to 0, if that makes sense. And then, now this value module, I can edit it by hitting Shift and the pencil and paper, and I can call it depth if I want. I'll just stop there. And so you can rename any of these modules actually to help you organize your patches, but I would move this module to the control page. So if I hit Shift plus these arrows up here, after pressing this, so I would have to press one of the values on the module to move it. And then if I hit Shift plus the arrows, I can move it wherever I press, basically. So Shift, if I move it down there, I just have to press there after hitting Shift plus the arrow. If I want to move it a different page, this page forward and page back button will move you to a different page. So I'm on the first page now, which I want to make my control page, and I can just press anywhere to move that value module there. And that now controls the depth. So I could have a really shallow tremolo, or I could have a really deep tremolo with just that one value controlling it. And yeah, I think I'll stop there, and we can take some questions. So does anyone have any questions on just the basic things we covered so far? I know I went pretty fast. Okay, you want a... Okay. Got it. I'm just reading all these different things. The next thing we want to do is control the value module with a stomp switch. And as far as the Euro Bureau goes, it's pretty much the same. The only difference is you don't need to add these audio input right and left. You can just patch directly. You know, it has its audio inputs right here. And let's see. Okay, so first, I've got a lot of good questions in the chat, and we can do a waveform selector. But first, I want to make it a tap tempo LFO and control the value module with the stomp switch. So what I'll do is to make this tap tempo. Right now, this LFO is controlled. The option is if I hit Shift plus Edit and go into it, the input is CV. And I can click on this option and change it to tap. There are some advantages to CV. I can just move it. I can press the button and move it with a knob. And yeah, with tap, I can set anything. I can connect this to anything I want and create a tap tempo. If we use the stomp switch, all I need is to add an interface module. Interface modules are anything that interfaces with either the grid, the stomp switches, the audio input and output. So there's MIDI audio and push buttons, keyboards, and stomp switches. So I'm going to select the stomp switch. I'm going to select the left stomp switch because this one is always going to be active. If I select one of these two, I'll have to go into auxiliary mode, which we can get into next. If I was doing this on the Euro Bureau, I would just select a push button, and I would use a push button to create tap tempo. But I'm doing it on the pedal, so I'm going to select a stomp switch, and I'm going to select the left stomp switch. You can either do momentary or latching. Latching, when I press it, it will go high and stay high or low. And momentary, it will just pulse. So I'm going to select that. And now when I press the stomp switch, I get a pulse. And this LFO, I'm going to, did I set it? I set it to tap. So all I need to do is connect the input of the LFO to this stop switch. And then I can tap my tempo now. So turn the depth back up so you can hear the example, but now I can, you know, just quickly tap it. Okay. And after I add that, let's see, if I want to control something else with the stop switch, say the depth, we need to go into auxiliary mode. So to do that, I need to hit scroll and bypass and hold those. And when I hold those, this button turns blue. What these buttons will do if it's not in auxiliary mode is it will scroll through your presets here and this will select the preset, or that will bypass it. This will select it. But I don't want to scroll the presets. I want to have these freely assignable. So when that's blue, it's just freely assignable. You can assign it to anything. So yeah, let's add another stop switch. And yeah, 2 taps. Okay. Well, I see there are, there's some comments about going too slow or too fast. Sorry, I'm trying to make it accessible to everyone. And, I understand if it feels too fast. I'll try to slow down a little bit. And, feel free to ask questions in the chat, specifically if I run through something too fast. I'm happy to, thanks. So anyway, let's try to control the depth with a stop switch. And I'm going to add a new stop switch, and I'm going to make this one latching and action latching instead of momentary, and hit done. And when, oh, you know what? I've got it, the left stop switch. So I want to change that to the middle. And that's the middle stop switch, and it goes high or low. And now when I press that and it's high, well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, if I connect that to the depth value module, I can then make this go high. So if it's low, I hit the stop switch. Now the depth is high. You wouldn't necessarily have to connect it to the value. You could just go, direct to the multiplier, CV input. But for this example, we'll just use the value because it's effectively the same. So these are on different pages. So the thing about different pages is when I press this module and I hit page left, it lights up yellow to show you that that you could be making a connection on a different page. So the way you can tell if your modules are connected to, well, we kind of ran over that really fast, is they'll light up together. So if I press the audio input and you see the VCA in light up, it might be hard to tell on my screen here, but like these two are really bright compared to the rest of them, and you can so they're connected. If I hit the output, these light up, so that those are connected. The other way you can tell is if you hit shift and the eyeball here, it will give you a list of connections. So it's easy to see, where things are connected. And yeah, back to the Stomp switch, connecting it to another page, we'll hit left. So when you see that, because it's easy, I mean, you can make accidental connections if you know you have something you have multiple pages and you're paging around and you forgot you selected something. Just look out for those yellow flashing lights so you don't make any accidental connections. So I'm going to connect that to the multiplier depth module, and now it's at 100%. I can change the connection strength at this point when I press both of them together. And I want to go down to like 50%. Close enough. So now when I press this, I made an accidental connection because that's not doing what I want. So I'm going to hit Shift and the eyeball and see where I made the wrong connection. So if I hit that depth number that's giving me a weird response, hit Shift plus the eyeball, I see I accidentally connected to the multiplier CV out. I don't want that. So if I hit Shift again, I can select it. You can see I have the multiplier CV selected, hit Shift plus delete, and that's gone. So now it should be working as I want it to be. And yeah, so now that will change the depth with a Stomp switch. And if I wanted it to be at 100%, I could go back and just turn this up. And that's that. Yeah, there's lots of little tricks, Jim, that you can kind of do. The views are really, the eyeball is really helpful when troubleshooting the patches. Okay, and I'm going to just take a moment and read a couple comments and see what you guys try to answer some of your other questions on tremolos. And if you have any basic, this might be a good point to just, if you have any real basic questions about what we've done so far, please let me know and we can cover those before we get into anything in more in depth. And as far as having a basis of how I keep patches organized, I like to I leave the first page blank, and then I'll move my, my control modules. And these are modules I can change different values that are deep in the patch with. And then I'll move I'll keep audio on a page and then I'll label it. So you can label your pages. So I think that's really important, is labeling your page. And to do that, when you page through the list, you hit, see, I see page 0, and I want to hit Shift plus Control, or Shift plus that paper and pencil, and I'm going to label that Control. And I just click to save it. Now I know I have a control page. I would label this audio. So I'll just put A for audio. But now I would try to keep all my audio kind of together. It really depends on the patch and how it goes, but I like to kind of keep everything flowing from kind of top to bottom, right to left to right, even though maybe if it was like really, I don't know. Yeah, that's how I would do it. But yeah, right. So as far as getting confused on how the pages move and things, I understand that, but I feel like once you get used to it, it kind of comes a little more naturally. Okay, the inverted signal, yeah. let's go back to that, because that's probably the most kind of confusing part on this. And so basically, the reason we want to invert the signal is because I want my threshold, and let me know if this doesn't make sense, but I want my threshold value to be 0, where the default value is 0. If I don't invert the signal and I leave, and why is this? It's because I'm using a multiplier to add my depth control. Like if I just go direct to the VCA, it doesn't matter if I use an inverter or not. It doesn't matter. See, I'll get the same result. And
I'm just saying you'll be able to figure it out. I trust that you'll be able to figure it out. It's not that hard.
So anyway, let's hit this. See, if it doesn't matter if I have an inverter, if I'm just going direct from the LFO to the VCA. But if I wanted to even change the connection strength, like it's at 100%, if I go down to 44%, now it's just going 0 to -7. And I don't want, I don't want a tremolo that I'm losing volume with. I want it to go high, stay high and go low. And I want to adjust the low point. And that's why you have to put the inverter in there. So now it's 0 to 7. If I invert, and inverting that is just, instead of 0 to 1, it's going to go 0 to -1, which will subtract from this if I max it out, or if I adjust the bias to 1 on the VCA. So now the VCA is open. At 0, the VCA is closed. At 1, it's open. And I'm going to I'll just bypass this multiplier concept and just add a CV invert and put that in. And now if I adjust the connection strength by pressing both of these, and I have that, it's at 91. If I adjust that, now I'm getting a better, more controllable depth. So instead of where it was going silence to -7 dBs, now it's going unity to -7, which is, what I want my trim to do. No problem. And I went through everything really fast, hoping that if it was too much, that we could ask questions about it now. So if anybody else has anything about what we've done so far, please let me know. I'm just going to set this back up the way I had it before. Okay, yeah. Could you sequence the LFO with rhythms? Could you input the high, low square wave gates with a quantized stomp switch in real time? And setting up a slew limiter and an envelope follower is also a really good question. First, I kind of want to show you I'll just show you this sequence trim really quick instead of building it out completely, because, and then we'll go back to my other patch that I didn't save. It's okay. And this patch is a sequence trim. I don't know if you can really hear it as well, but you can see that it's sequencing through 8 tracks. And that is what I'm doing. Instead of the LFO that was connected to the VCA, I added a sequencer instead of that LFO. Yeah, save often. I think I can put that together in like 2 seconds though. So, but yeah, so the thing with the sequencer, it's pretty straightforward. I have different values instead of, 0 and 1. You can change the steps on the sequencer and have all kinds of different combinations for your tremolo. And you can see there it's going, and I'll just show you how to put a sequencer on here real quick. If you hit control modules, let's see, sequencer is in here, it's at the top, and then you can select how many steps. After you select sequencer, you get the second menu, and you can select how many steps you want, and then I click, I'm going to do 4 steps here. Click done. Only 1 track because I want the track's the output here, and you can change the color. So this different colored node on my sequencer is the gate input. So that's what's going to run the sequencer. So like we had before, if I added a control module LFO, and I just connect that pulse there, will make the sequencer run. And you'll see we press the button to set the steps on the sequencer. You pick the step, and then you adjust the bias of that step. So I'm going to do 0 on 1, press step 2, and do 0.5. Step 3 will be closer to 0, but not 0. And then 4, I want 1. And then if I connected that to my VCA, I'd have, a real basic sequencer module, or a sequencer trim. Yeah, each step of the sequencer could open the VCA that allows the trim to control, or allows the LFO to control a tremolo to a different LFO. What did I connect the LFO to on the sequencer to run it? Good question. So you'll see this this light on the sequencer that's different than these 4 lights are the 4 steps that I selected. This light is the output. This blue light is the gate in. So I connect the LFO input to the gate input to run the sequencer. Okay, cool. And actually, just to show you a slew, how a slew would work in this situation, we could connect it to this sequencer. And what a slew will do is, instead of a fast immediate response, so if I'm getting, instead of going directly from 0 to 1, it would slow that rise down. And if you go to control modules and select slew limiter, and I want the controls linked, so I want the linked means the speed of both the rise and the fall are the same. So I'll go ahead and connect that, and I want it to be relatively fast. And you can see, instead of this going, this is the sequencer out, and it's just 0.51. It's, allowing some movement. It's smoothing it out is the word I'm looking for. It's smoothing it out so that things can sound more musical. At least that's one application of it. and I'm going to connect. I'm just going to delete these other connections, and then I'm going on my VCA, and I know this is I know these two are my VCAs because I put them first closest to my audio input. That's kind of how I organize it. It's like my most, that's another thing on organizing it. I put my most important things in a patch next to the audio input and output. And I know this is stereo, but it's the same as the other one. I know my most important thing is going to be my VCA on this patch. So I'll just connect the slew to both the left and the right. And you can hear the difference on these. And we could speed up the LFO and then lower the rate of the slew so it's a faster slew, but it's still smooth. It's more of a sine wave than an LFO. So is the slew linear? Good question. So there's the CV, there's two kinds of slew-like modules in the ZOIA. There's the CV filter and there's the slew limiter. And one of them's limiter. One of them is linear, and I cannot remember which one. I always get them confused. I would look at the help to see. Like, so I'm going to look at the help on the slew and hit shift plus question mark, and it should tell me if it is. Yeah, CV happens linearly instead of logarithmically. So the CV on the slew is linear, and the CV on the CV filter is logarithmic. So we can kind of compare the difference. It's getting a little technical, so I don't want to get too into it. But you can see when I adjust the time constant even, let's get them at the same time. Oh, wait, 0.48 seconds, yeah, okay. And then you see how they kind of change differently. That's a CV filter. And that's a slew limiter. And yeah, I'll post this up. So anything you missed, you know, you can go back through and check it out. But I have about 15 more minutes. So I would like to kind of take a couple more questions. So I'm going to go back to some of the early ones because we did skip over. Oh yeah, that's one I like, is making a basic stereo tremolo panner. There's a lot of different ways you can do that on the ZOIA. So I'm just going to patch up just a basic. I'm just going to patch this up as fast as possible. Just a basic tremolo, and then we'll add some. So I've got my audio in and out, audio modules, VCA, control modules, LFO. And how do we make this kind of a stereo effect? So the easiest way would probably be, you know, you can delay any of it. You could delay the one side of the VCA by less than, I think like 40 milliseconds would be like Haas, where it sounds like a crazy panning effect, or you could delay the CV. So I'm going to add two VCAs here. audio modules, VCA, and then so I'm going to connect this first VCA up to the left output, and this right VCA I'm going to connect instead of directly the right output. I would probably just add just a delay line with a really short delay, and then I mean, you could add an audio pin, or I think a delay line sounds cool. Let's just add a really short delay on a delay line. Then I'll connect this VCA audio out 1 to the delay line in, and then I connected that to the output. So instead of hitting at the same time, these should be kind of sounding. That doesn't sound very drastic. I think Zoom's only picking up the one side of the signal, because I can't get I'm not hearing a stereo signal. But to answer your question, that should sound like stereo, and I would add a delay line, and then if you wanted it kind of to pan more drastically, like you could add a VCA. Let's see. I would do like a sine wave. And an audio balance module, and then put it in stereo. And then connect the LFO to the audio balance to make more of a panning effect, but you're not going to be able to hear this because it's not doing stereo. So maybe so. I thought I saw one, but it looked like it was. Okay. Anyway, let's move on from stereo effects. Waveform selector, good one. Let's see, I think I have one in here that is already made. So yeah, here's one. I would use a sequencer on the waveform selector. So here's one that I made, and we can go through building it. I think that will. This one has tap tempo. And if the middle switch changes between different waveforms, and we'll just do 2 really quick. You could do 3, and it would just be easier to do 2, but with 3 you would use a sequencer. Again, I'm just patching it up. And this time, so I've got my stereo LFO or my stereo tremolo, and I've added audio in and out. There's my VCA. And this time, instead of connecting an LFO directly to another multiplier, what I'm going to do is add a switch. So I'm going to add a square wave and a sine wave. So here's my square, here's my sine, and I'm going to go to control modules and input switch. Number of inputs, 2. And I'm going to use this middle stop switch to change between them. So if I hit Shift plus, let's see, if I interface module stop switch, I'm going to select the middle. And there we go. Now I've got that stop switch. It's momentary, so that's not going to work for me. I need to go in there and edit it, Shift plus this the pencil and paper, and action latching. There we go. And now it holds. So I'm going to connect that to the input select. That's the first thing after the two switch options. So I'm going to connect that. I'm going to connect my two LFOs. And then I'm going to connect that to my VCA. And now if I hit the stop switch, I switch between a sine wave and a square wave. And did I patch it up? Let's test it. No. So troubleshooting, why doesn't it make sound? If I like to stop, or I like to start at, where is it, where where's the end of your signal? So it's right, I know it's right here at the pedal. I put a pedal input instead of an output, so I'll just delete that. Yay. It's the fun, the joys of doing it live. I actually like it, but so I'm going to add an audio output instead. And now I can connect those. There we go. And square wave, sine wave. And, hey, what's up, Mitch? I know I met Mitch at the other Mitch in the chat at NAM. I don't know if he's still here, but yeah, he's cool. And then, yeah, I don't know if we have time for much more. Is there anything that was kind of confusing or that I need to elaborate on? Anything so far? Okay, you can access this. I'll send an email and I'll put it on the web page too. So I'll send out an email next week with what we're going to do next week, and I'll also have a link to this video on it, and then it'll be on the website too. How do I quiet the pulsing? There, it's just a noise from my guitar. So yeah, I'll answer just a couple other questions. How to use a momentary foot switch that slowly ramps up the rate and then falls when you're released. That's a good one, and I do want to show you that real quick. So what I would use is also a slew or a filter or a CV filter. So I'll add a control module and CV filter, and this time constant will control how fast it ramps and falls. What I need to do is add this stop switch. I need to change it to, I'm going to change it to momentary, and then connect that into the CV filter input. And as I hold this stop switch now, it rises. And you can see this is the CV filter is doing it. It's got a logarithmic curve. So it's curved like I need to draw it out. It's curved like this, where linear would just be like a straight line. And if I wanted it to be a linear curve, I would just use a slew limiter. So yeah, now what do I want to do with that? If I wanted to have that ramp up the speed of my trim, I would just connect that to the LFO CVN. If the LFO is in CV mode, if it's in tap, that's not going to work, but we're in CV. So I'm going to connect those two and just do, I want it to be like 20. I don't want it to go crazy. So I'm going to connect them at like 28% or something. And now if you look at the LFO CV control, as I hold that, it gets faster and faster. I always think in BPM, so I always want to change that. And the time constant, I want it to be a little faster. So I'm not going to put my foot up here. I wish to show you an example of it, but I turned my guitar off. You can hear it now go faster. And then if I take it off, it slows down. And if I change the time constant, it'll just change faster or slower. So now it's, and this is a really fun trick. So and then yes, it would. Yeah, Jim, it'll stay high as you hold it down, as long as you hold it down. And then, so yeah. Yeah, I really needed a noise gate, or just use my other guitar. This one's just a lot more noisy. Sorry. Next time I'll use a different guitar. And there's one other question I wanted to answer real quick. Yeah, how do you bypass if you're putting the stomp switches in auxiliary? You can't. So you've got to hold these again and go out of auxiliary and then bypass. The other thing you can do is MIDI, or you can actually create a push button to do this. So this is new. I haven't actually used it. It's kind of a new addition, and it's called device control. And there's an option for bypass, or there's an option for auxiliary. But I could just make a button now and add an interface module, push button, and I want a latching push button, and I just connect those two, and now I can bypass with a push button. You could do this with MIDI. You could do it with anything, and it's handy. You could, instead of doing bypass, you could have a push button that changes to auxiliary. So now, if you wanted to go out of auxiliary, you could just use that push button. What else does it do? It does, there's also performance mode, which is really handy, but yeah. That's pretty much it. And I'm just reading over the notes now. That's a cool idea of like seeing how different people use it. I don't know if I'd want to critique anybody's patches. I guess if that would be something maybe we could consider in the future, where we like had a meeting where it was like, let's try to improve our patches and see and share patches. Yeah, roastmypatch.com. But I think that's a cool idea. And what is performance mode? Thank you for asking. That's a good question. So there's always the problem with making, if you're performing and using like maybe a keyboard, if this is a keyboard or anything really, you might make accidental connections. So performance mode keeps you from making accidental connections. So hit shift, and this is a new addition too. This wasn't on the original ZOIA. Just hit shift plus the back button here. And this turns pink. And now when I try to connect things, it doesn't work. And I can't make accidental connections. I can still like page through and push buttons, turn things on and off, you know, control, you know, move the controls and stuff too. Yeah, it's super helpful. I feel like I should probably talk about it more because it's useful, and I think people forget about it because it wasn't on the original firmware. I mean, it's changed a lot. It's pretty cool how much new stuff. Child lock is exactly what it is. And yeah, that's I think we're pretty much out of time. I could answer like one more question really fast. I would stay here all night, but I can't. Yeah, and thank you everybody for attending and checking it out. Yeah, if you want to, if you have any questions on it, you can always email us. I mean, there's the ZOIA community is awesome, so it's nice to like just see everybody here after so long. And yeah, I think it was really fun. I hope you guys come back and we can keep doing this. Yeah, join Discord. The tips and tricks is a great resource. If you haven't looked at that, the tips and tricks document, just search it. Just control F or whatever to find whatever you're looking for, and you'll get some good information. And I'll be sure to Jim, do you have the Discord link? No, it is not on the Inverse site, but I can put that in my to-do list to put on there right now. Doing a session on Euro Bureau and patching CD in and out. Yeah, that'd be really fun. Hopefully we do this more than once, and we could do that. We already have this one planned out, but the next one maybe. Yeah, I love the Euro Bureau. So maybe at some point we could have a dedicated Euro Bureau kind of jam or a session. Or if you're at Superbooth, hopefully I'll see you there. All right. Thanks, Jim, for the Discord link, and I'll put that. I can promote that on like I'll put that in the next ZOIA group email. That Discord link if you didn't get it. The Discord group is awesome. Oh, it expires. Okay. Well, I'll figure it out. But I'll send some kind of link to everyone. Yeah, and something on loopers. Yeah, fair enough. I think we might. I'm not sure, but we might have one more unannounced. What would you? One more class to add to the one more meeting. And if we do, I'll try to see if we can do something on loopers. But yeah, thanks again, everybody. And I'll email you this week. And if you have any questions, you know, you can shoot me an email, shoot Michael's our new support guy. He knows what's up too. He can, thanks Michael for moderating this whole thing. And yeah, if you email support, you'll talk to Michael and he can help you out too. Discord link that won't expire. Perfect. And yeah, okay. Well, I'll see you hopefully all next week. And thank you again, everyone, for coming.
Thanks a lot, Mitch. That was awesome.
Yeah,
You
no
did a good
problem.
job.
Thanks.